His view is in space, with stars in the distance. His view starts to pan slowly to the right as echoey voices are heard. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? It's energy. I am your father. He is the chosen one. Execute Order 66. I will be the most powerful Jedi ever. He is the key to everything. A small moon appears and his view slowly zooms in. As he gets closer, he notices that it is actually a giant battle station. His vision is dizzy like a dream as he is suddenly inside of the battle station. Everything is too blurry to make out the details. However, he can faintly make out a man in a brown robe when a red lightsaber slashes through him, causing the man to disappear. It was Ben Kenobi. Filled with grief of seeing the great Jedi die again, his blurry vision suddenly shifts to a dark room. To the right of himself, he could see an outline of a man in a dark suit. "Father." The man didn't answer. "Father." The suited man couldn't hear him. He then realized that none of this was actually happening, as it was just a series of flashbacks. He could only stand there and witness these past events, unable to act on them. He walked alongside the dark-suited man up to what looked like an older man in a cloak, laughing menacingly. Even with his blurred and dizzy vision, he knew it was the Emperor. His vision then shifted to a fire with the same suited man lying in it. He remembered how sad but proud he was when this moment really happened because it was right after his father's death, but returned to Anakin Skywalker. The smoke from the fire didn't help the already hazy vision. He wanted to stay by his father because he knew that in reality, his father was no longer with him in the physical world, and that his vision would soon switch to another scene. A few seconds later, it shifted. But this time, it shifted to the real present moment. Everything was clear and he saw 3 figures with blue auras around them. It was Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Anakin. "Welcome, my son." Everything made sense now. He had just died using the last of his energy saving what was left of the resistance on Crate. He had gone through the process of becoming a Force Ghost, an ability learned from his closest Force Ghost mentors. Although nothing like his power as his prime human self used to be, he was at least now one with the Force. The last of the Resistance have landed on Tatooine, where almost all of the remaining members have given up after their numbers are down to a handful. For their own safety, they part their separate ways, claiming the end of the Resistance against the First Order. Apart from Leia, Chewbacca, Poe, Finn, Rose and the droids, Rey finds herself alone, calling to the Force for one last answer to Kylo Ren and the First Order. After the death of the Supreme Leader Snoke, the First Order by orders from Kylo Ren settle in Darth Vader's abandoned castle on Mustafar. Kylo Ren, still passionate about his grandfather, hopes to feel connected to the dark side at this location and unlock his true potential as a Sith. In the castle he finds a wayfinder that gives the directions to the Sith planet Exegol. He studies the artifact, but with his ongoing internal conflict, he is lost in what to do next. He feels as though failure arises wherever he walks. In Vader's castle, Kylo sits facing his grandfather's burnt helmet. He holds the wayfinder, studying its directions to a Sith planet called Exegol. Conflicted between the pull to the light and dark, and feeling overwhelmingly lost, he becomes emotional. He feels his old Jedi self inside of him but refuses to acknowledge it because he is determined to become the ultimate Sith. Deep down he knows that killing his father was the wrong thing to do, but even having that thought pulls his soul to the light side, bringing internal anger. Adding to his struggle is the fact that he failed to turn Rey away from the light, making him feel as if she was stronger than himself. Feeling the lack of faith to become what his grandfather once was, and feeling altogether lost, he gets up and walks away from the Sith helmet when he hears the word, "Ben," coming from behind him. Kylo uses the Force to pull his crossguard lightsaber from his belt to his hand and ignites it, turning around and pointing it in the direction of the voice. He looks back to see a man surrounded with a blue aura looking at him. Kylo yells, "Who are you? What is this?" The man calmly answers, "I'm your grandfather." Kylo frantically replies back, "Vader is dead." The man replies, "Yes, he is, but I am Anakin, and I am here to warn you, Ben." Kylo keeps his position, ready to attack or defend. He realizes that this is something powerful from the Force. He yells in confusion, "How are you alive? How are you possibly doing this?" Anakin calmly responds, "I'm not alive per se. I have become one with the Force after my death. And although I cannot do all of what I once could as a living being, I can give you my words to fix what you are now, and your future." Kylo lowers his lightsaber. His old master Luke Skywalker had talked about this sort of Force ghost afterlife, but Kylo had never actually seen it, leading to him not fully believe it. Kylo slowly speaks. "I just want to be what you once were. A powerful Sith. But I am always being pulled in the other direction no matter what I do. Everything that happens to me makes me feel more lost and conflicted." Anakin speaks. "Ben, I was wrong. Once the dark side consumed too much of me, I turned into a monster. I thought that the path to the dark side was right, but in it I learned that it is filled with pain and betrayal. The Sith Lord I called Master was evil and made my life pure suffering. In all of it, he only had plans to betray me." Kylo quickly replies, "I killed my master, and even if I still had one, why would I base my whole future off of your supposed bad experience?" Anakin responds, "I was not the only Sith betrayed. Countless others in my lifetime were betrayed in their journey through the dark side. The assassin Darth Maul had his brother killed in front of him by his former master after Maul was casted aside for greater power. The separatist Count Dooku had trust in his Sith master until he was betrayed seconds before his death. You must understand that the dark side is never the right path to go down. I thought I was stuck in darkness forever, but my own son brought me back to my true self through his faith and determination. I say this because there is still hope for you to become Ben Solo again." Kylo, irritated by hearing the reference to Luke Skywalker, strictly talks, "Your son is the reason I suffer today. The only right thing he has done is going into exile where no one would find him. I feel as though there's nothing left I can do except to do the same. I will disappear, so there is nothing I can add to my internal conflict. I have failed." Force Ghost Luke appears next to his father. Luke says, "I see the good in you as clear as I saw it in my father. Do not give up. Running away from everything as I did fixes nothing." Kylo in rage raises his hand at Luke and blue Force lightning shoots out in all directions, lighting up the dark room and causing smoke to appear everywhere. When it clears, the Force ghosts have vanished. On Tatooine, Rey travels alone in the scorching desert, her surroundings being very much like her home planet Jakku. She is not bothered by the atmosphere and in fact, makes her feel at home and a little less lost in this whole conflict. Rey is following a calling she feels from the Force in a direction that she is unfamiliar with. Desperate to find something to bring balance back to the galaxy, she trusts in the Force to guide her. She keeps hearing a child's voice in the Force, but is unable to make out the words. She continues to follow its direction. A few hours later, she arrives in a deserted and poor-looking town. The child's voice is much louder now. She follows the voice into an abandoned and run-down home. In the entryway there are words engraved into the firm sand walls. Shmi Skywalker. Rey, assuming it was a relative to Luke, continues into the house and into the back room where she hears the child's voice coming from a small box in the corner. She opens it and suddenly she is on a scorching hot riverbank, lava all around her and a river of fire running to the side of her. She hears someone scream, "I hate you," off into the distance and feels a great disturbance in the Force. All around her she feels the dark side looming powerfully. She had never seen a landscape made up of lava like this before. Suddenly she is back, her hands on the box that she was opening. Confused and in shock, she opens it. In it is a single note with writing that appears to be from a child. It says, "I keep getting these weird feelings like magic around me. I see these visions, but Mom keeps telling me they are nothing. There is this place filled with lava that keeps appearing in my head. I hate when it happens because it just feels like where evil people would be. Even sometimes a monster in a black suit appears. Maybe I am the only one who has this, or maybe just no one believes me." Rey, very confused, realizes that this note and child have a strong connection with the Force. She doesn't recall the name Shmi, but with the name Skywalker written on the wall, she assumes that what the Force is showing her in this house is significant. Rey talks to herself, "If I am shown this lava place and it is where the dark side seems to be strong, then it could be where Kylo is." Rey knows that she must go to him to surrender to the First Order and plead for the violence to stop. Rey returns to where the rest of the group has settled in Mos Eisley to get more information about the location that she has learned about. R2-D2 projects a map of the galaxy while C-3PO commentates. Rey explains what she saw and read about regarding the location, and C-3PO states that it must be the planet Mustafar. Leia is in a nearby tent building a gift for Rey to wield. The blue lightsaber last used by Rey on Snoke's ship was broken into 2 pieces, making it unusable. Just outside, the Millennium Falcon lands. Finn and Rose, who just traveled back to Ahch-To by request of Leia to fetch Luke's green lightsaber, exit the ship and meet Leia in the tent. Poe hands over Luke's lightsaber. Leia speaks, "Finally, the last parts that I needed." Finn replies, "We had to look around, but finally we found the caretaker who had the lightsaber." Leia takes apart the lightsaber and uses the Force to make both lightsaber parts, along with other materials, float in the air above her. After a few seconds, the new weapon falls into Leia's hands and she ignites it. It is a double-bladed lightsaber with green coming out of one end and blue out of the other from the respective kyber crystals. A blend of both legendary lightsabers to better fit Rey's natural staff fighting style. Rey walks in. "Hello there." Rey has wide-open eyes as she looks at the new weapon. Leia says to Rey, "Here, I think this will do the trick." Rey responds by saying, "It's perfect." Rey takes the lightsaber and attaches it to her belt. Rey explains that she must go to Mustafar to settle an agreement with Kylo that her side is done fighting, and hopes to find mutual acceptance for violence to stop. She insists that Leia stays behind for safety. Leia, with a long pause, agrees to stay back, however sneaks into the back of the ship as the rest prepare for Mustafar, hoping that her son will be at the lava planet. Rey, along with R2, C-3PO, BB-8, Finn, Rose, Chewie, and Poe head to Mustafar in the Millennium Falcon while being unaware that Leia is with them. The Millennium Falcon enters Mustafar's atmosphere, where Rey flies in the direction of which she starts to feel Kylo's presence. She now knows that this is in fact where Kylo is gone, and the landscape looks very similar to what she saw in the vision and what the note described. She lands the ship near a black castle-like building and tells the rest to wait in the ship and for C-3PO to come with in case there are any droid or language complications along the way. She puts on a black cloak so she doesn't stand out too obviously in the castle. She hears the same scream through the Force, "I hate you," and walks along a lava river towards the castle. She knows that entering through the main entrance would cause too much commotion, so to find and talk to Kylo she looks for another way in. Behind the castle she finds an odd, large stone plate that appears to go underground, potentially into the castle. As she reaches to observe it, it moves aside as she touches it, revealing steps going underground. Rey wonders if there's a strange connection with the Force in the area because she, without even trying to use the Force, moved the stone. She heads into the pitch-black underground area as C-3PO says, "I have a bad feeling about this." Rey ignites her lightsaber for light, making her surroundings an ominous blue and green. Once they make it to the bottom of the stairs, the area appears to be large just based off the wide echoes of their footsteps. Rey hears constant Sith whispers and asks C-3PO what the sounds mean because she doesn't see anyone else in the near area. C-3PO says, "They are Sith chants." These whispers are known to come from the dark side energy itself. The words translate to the wise, cheating death and Exegol as they chant over and over. Rey responds by saying, "The wise, cheating death and Exegol? I don't know what that is supposed to mean, but are you sure these sounds are not coming from any living being here?" C-3PO says, "Why yes, I am sure that it is just the dark side energy. Sith chants like these are not actual beings producing the sounds." Rey looks around and utters, "Let's just get through here before anything bad happens." The large underground area continues through many empty rooms. They come across a giant vault ingrained into a side wall that is sealed with Beskar, a Mandalorian precious metal capable of stopping lightsabers and blaster fire. C-3PO reads the Sith language written on the vault door. This writing here says that if any threat arises to the Sith knowledge of cheating death known in this area, destruction of this planet's area shall be activated to eliminate those who have learned or attempted to learn. I assume there must be some form of a mass explosive weapon behind this door. It appears that whoever created this door has the same creative knowledge of the technology used to create me because the door can only be opened by droids with AN-45 mechanical abilities. It is almost like whoever created me also created this door. However, the odds of that are 1 in. Rey comments, "We should just move along 3PO, before we mess anything up. I don't want to be involved with any sort of Sith knowledge." They finally reach the stairs that lead up to the castle itself. Rey can sense that Kylo is above her in the castle. Rey and C-3PO avoid many First Order members on the way to the higher floor where Kylo is. When they get to the room, Kylo has his lightsaber ignited in his hand, looking at them as they enter the room. Rey looks at Kylo with disappointment. Back at the ship, while the others are distracted in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, Leia sneaks out and goes through the same route that Rey and C-3PO traveled to get to the castle. All she has hope left for is for her son to return to the light. She has been through so much heartbreak throughout her life that all of her priority now sits with getting her son back. She continues through the path as Kylo and Rey talk above. Kylo speaks, "What could you possibly want?" Rey starts to speak, "Bend the resistance." Kylo points his fiery red lightsaber blade at Rey. Kylo yells, "Don't use that name. I don't care what has happened in the past, I'm done with everything. I'm done with the constant conflict I have." Rey says, "Then end the destructive conflict against others in your First Order's need of power over the galaxy. All it does is bring death and destruction, and you will never be satisfied. I can feel your struggle. I know you won't join any of our sides, but I know that you realize what you are doing is wrong." Kylo lowers his lightsaber and speaks. "I don't know who I am anymore. This is all because Luke betrayed me. Your Jedi code is filled with lies and betrayal." Rey talks, "I understand why you turned away from the Jedi, but the dark side is no place to live. I feel the fear and disturbance in this very place." Rey paces around the room, examining various artifacts from the remains of Snoke's ship laid throughout the area as she speaks. She doesn't feel threatened by Kylo anymore, as she knows he wouldn't have the mentality to strike her down. He had recently even fought along her side to kill Snoke, proving even more to her that he isn't destined to be in the dark side. She notices the wayfinder to Exegol next to the artifacts. Rey continues, hearing Sith chants such as cheating death. "This is nothing like you." Kylo looks up confused and asks, "What are these Sith chants you speak of?" Rey replies by saying, "I was told that there are various phrases chanted in Sith language under this castle. Things that neither of us are meant to be involved with." Rey observes a ring next to other strange-looking items. It was the same ring worn by Snoke. She fiddles with it as she continues to speak. "The resistance is gone. You can claim victory if that's what you want. You must end what your order is doing to the galaxy. You know what has happened in the past to groups like yours. They never last. Think about your people. Forcing them to kill others for labor is far from what your core beliefs are." Leia enters the room, where Ben looks over in anger and confusion. Rey is still facing the corner of artifacts as she slips the ring onto her finger. Rey speaks, "Please Ben, I..." Rey stops talking. Kylo looks to her confused. Rey turns around, her eyes Sith orange. She speaks in an evil tone, "He will return once more." Rey ignites her double-bladed lightsaber and quickly swings it at Kylo, who ignites his flickering red crossguard saber to defend the strike. Rey aggressively attacks while Kylo fights in a defensive style, not understanding what just happened. Leia, shocked, senses that the dark side has gotten into Rey and must have been from the ring on her finger. This climatic moment is the most important moment of Leia's life. The camera view is on Leia, where everything around her is now pure white and silent. She sees 6-year-old Ben holding his hand out, trying to use the Force to pick up a lightsaber. He finally does it, and Luke comes into frame to celebrate with him. Leia turns to see her father Anakin surrounded by a blue aura looking at her. He speaks. "This is your time, Leia. I know that you understand what must be done to bring Ben back. This must be done if the universe is to be saved. I have taught you how to become one with the Force. I'll see you soon, daughter." Leia's view is back in the room where Kylo and Rey are dueling. Kylo uses the Force to push Rey back and build distance between them, where Rey then throws her double-bladed saber like a spear at Kylo. Kylo uses the Force to stop it in mid-air, where Leia, with her hand by her side, also uses the Force to control the airborne lightsaber. Leia then uses most of the energy she has to cast a Force vision into her son's head. Kylo's view. He continues to hold out his hand with the Force to keep the double-bladed lightsaber from getting closer to him. His focus on it is strong as his surrounding gets black and fog sweeps around on the ground. He is very confused. Suddenly, Darth Maul appears across the room, using the Force to push the saber closer in Kylo's direction. Kylo grits his teeth and pushes with the Force as hard as he can. Count Dooku appears next to Maul and also contributes to pushing the saber in Kylo's direction. Vader's breathing is heard as he appears, and Darth Sidious joins, all with glowing orange eyes. Kylo feels an overwhelming feeling of fear and darkness and is no match for the force power of the group as the saber slowly starts to impale his chest. Kylo looks down and lets out a yell when suddenly he feels a relief that he hasn't felt in years. The room is now white, and when he opens his eyes, the saber in his chest has turned into butterflies flying out of his wound that then disappears. He looks up to see Luke with his hand out using the force on him while smiling. Kylo starts to have a change in heart, realizing how truly evil and painful the dark side is. "Forgive me, Ben," Luke says, softly as Kylo stares at him full of emotion. Luke then explains how to use the light to become one with the Force after death. This is a significant power of the light side to learn before one dies, thus allowing the person to still live on, however in a much different way than being in the flesh. In the distance he sees himself as a child playing with Chewbacca while his parents watch. Han walks over to Kylo and says, "Come home." Kylo looks at his left hand and realizes that his lightsaber is back on his belt. He and his father both gently grab it and Kylo lets go for Han to take it. Deep down, he knows that the light is where he belongs. The vision then ends. In reality, his vision occurred in just seconds. Everything is silent. Leia, with her hand hidden by her side, flicks her finger and uses the Force to pull the mid-air double-bladed saber in her direction, stabbing her. Once Kylo comes out of the vision, he sees Leia dying with the saber in her and has now fully committed himself back to the light. Rey uses the Force to pull back the lightsaber into her possession. Ben, with sadness and anger, runs over to Leia. He notices in his left hand that his fire-spitting red saber is now white, as the crystal had been purified while he was. Leia's body fully disappears as Rey tries to strike at him again. Ben, having the mindset that she killed his mother, fights back as the white saber collides with each side of Rey's saber throughout the fight. The two who were in the respective light and dark side of the Force when entering the room had now completely switched. Ben hears Leia's voice telling him to run. In the castle, Ben runs off from Rey, who appears to be following him. Before exiting the room, she grabs the Wayfinder to Exegol and puts it in her cloak. Ben pushes a button on his wrist pad and orders his Knights of Ren to blockade the third floor and to stop the enemy from passing. They take the order and the group of warriors stand ready at the door as Ben passes them, trying to act as casual as possible to not show that he is no longer Kylo. When Ben gets down to the next floor, Force Ghost Anakin appears in front of him and begins to speak. "Ben, you need to listen very carefully. There isn't much time and I have to explain to you what is happening. Rey put on Snoke's ring, which was the artifact that the Sith Lord Darth Plagueis put his special dark side power into, to allow himself to cheat death." Ben, with confusion, replies, "What is this cheating death I keep hearing about?" Anakin tries to bring clarity to the situation and continues. "The prophecy of the Chosen One from ancient times states that the Chosen One will destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force. I am that Chosen One. There is a secret dark side power known as cheating death, and was unfortunately part of the reason I was lured to the dark side. Darth Sidious told me that his master Darth Plagueis was very knowledgeable in this ability." Sounds of Rey's lightsaber striking is heard from the level above. Anakin continues talking as what he says is now shown as a series of flashbacks. "Plagueis and Sidious were the only ones who learned this power, until I discovered it as Vader, as it was something I truly worked to achieve while I was a Sith. No one knew that I discovered this ability, and to protect any possibility of another learning it, or even discovering that I had achieved it, I created a mass destruction weapon under this castle to ensure that no enemy survived. The way this dark side ability works is that one uses the dark side of the Force in a unique way to pour energy into an artifact of the user's choice. That artifact then has the ability to bring back the user in the flesh, even after they have died. In a way, it is looked at as creating life because natural death is being cheated. However, once they die again, they won't be able to come back again, as this ability only allows a being to come back alive once." Ben asks, "So the ring that Rey put on was Plagueis' artifact that is used to bring him back to life once more?" Anakin replies, "That is correct, and when someone has control of the artifact, they are consumed by the dark side and have only one mission, to revive the artifact's owner on Exegol. Once at the Sith planet, the owner can be revived back to life a final time, but the being that brings the artifact to Exegol must be a Force user for the process to work. It turns the mental state of the Force user completely to the dark side." Ben understands and states, "So Rey is trying to get to Exegol now?" Anakin replies, "Yes, but first she is trying to eliminate any possible Force user, thus preventing me from returning on Exegol because she now serves Darth Plagueis." Since your mother is gone, Rey is only trying to kill you. Now that she is consumed with dark side power from the ring, you will not be able to defeat her. The prophecy says that I am the only one able to finish this if she is trying to revive Plagueis. You need to try to revive me into my human self to be strong enough for this. Ben understands and asks, but what about Darth Sidious? If he knew about this power, can't he return back to life? Anakin states, Sidious told me that he killed Plagueis while Plagueis was asleep. However, I discovered through Sith meditation that what he said isn't completely true. He told me that he killed his master to try and lure me with the hope of me seeing him as extremely powerful. The truth is that they both already created their respected artifact and they killed themselves in a duel. Sidious thought that his master hadn't yet poured his power into an artifact. So, when Plagueis was killed, he assumed that was the end of him. After Sidious was killed in the duel, he had one of his Force-sensitive pupils who knew about the art of cheating death go and revive him on Exegol. Thus, when I killed him on the second Death Star, that was the final death that ensured Sidious was gone forever. Ben says, so I need to find your artifact and bring it to Exegol where you will be revived once more. Anakin answers back, exactly, and that can be found at Naboo, in my wife's tomb. I advise you to tell C-3PO to activate the underground weapon here, thus persuading the First Order members to part ways while also destroying the information under the castle. Rey reaches the Knights of Ren, where because she has become more powerful with using the dark side power, she has the advantage over the warriors. They put up a fight and stall out time for Ben to move ahead, but all fall in the process. Ben reaches the first level where he turns on the intercom to talk to the whole First Order stationed at Vader's castle, knowing that he has to end the First Order. This is an emergency announcement. The Resistance is gone, and the First Order has come to an end as well. This is the official announcement that everyone must depart ways. Anyone who denies leaving this area will suffer the consequence of death. As Ben exits the castle, he sees the Millennium Falcon and yells over to the crew that he is on their side and that Rey has fallen to the dark side. The crew doesn't believe him and asks how they can trust him. He ignites his white saber to show that it has been purified. Finn says to the others, his Kyber crystal has been purified, which can only be done with using the light side of the Force. Ben yells, she killed Leia. The dark side has consumed her. Tell C-3PO to activate the weapon under the castle. We have to move fast. Rey is after me and the only way out of this situation is for me to live. She will assume I am with you in the Falcon. Lure her somewhere far away to buy me time to bring back Anakin. Rose with surprise whispers under her breath confused, Leia came on the ship. Poe with confusion says, bring back Anakin? Finn cuts him off and says to Ben, you better be telling the truth here. Finn tells her 2D2 to find C-3PO and tell him to activate the weapon. They prepare the Falcon and Ben goes the other way, getting into a First Order TIE-FO and heads off to Naboo. Members of the First Order frantically run to take escort shuttles off of the planet. There are even some who deny to end the order and stay in the castle. R2-D2 finds C-3PO in the castle and communicates with him to activate the weapon under the castle, as only his type of technology can do so. C-3PO opens the sealed vault and activates it and a timer sets for 1 minute. Those who have chosen to leave the area have left, but some loyal members refuse to leave. R2-D2 and C-3PO arrive out of the underground area just as Rey exits from the main part of the castle with bright orange Sith eyes. Poe yells for them to hurry as it is a race between the droids and Rey to get to the ship. The ground starts to rumble as the weapon starts to activate. Rey is too far ahead of the droids, which forces the crew to leave the droids behind for the greater good. Chewie lifts the Falcon off of the ground and they take off before Rey could get to them, as she thinks that Ben is with them. Rey looks around and finds Ben's ship, the TIE Silencer, which she takes and follows the Falcon off of the planet. The ground strongly shakes and explosions come from the ground. C-3PO realizes what will happen to him and R2-D2 and puts his hand on his droid friend. He confidently says, well, you have been a real friend, R2. Know that what we did here today forced the reign of the First Order to come to an end. R2-D2 beeps as the camera view shows a wide field of view shot of them together and the area starting to explode. General Hux looks out of the castle in fear as the explosion cuts to a far-out view of the planet's area being completely destroyed by the explosions coming from beneath the castle. Ben is in his TIE-FO traveling in hyperspace to Naboo. It is quiet as he reflects on the chaotic events that just occurred. The ship exits hyperspace and is in front of the planet. Ben had never been to this planet, but has heard of the beauty in it being full of life. He lands the ship away from the main port of the planet where most of the traffic is. Most of the galaxy would easily recognize him and associate him with the First Order, so once he gets out of the ship, he sneakily walks over near the crowded area where there are street vendors selling a variety of things. When no one is looking, he uses the Force to grab a brown robe with a hood from a cart so no one will recognize him. He takes off his black clothing and puts on the robe. He heads towards the largest building in the city where Padmé's tomb casket is. There currently isn't anyone in the area as he gets closer to the tomb. Once he reaches it, he begins to open it, but suddenly a group of Naboo guards approach him, asking what business he has here. Ben raises both hands in innocence as he tells them that he is on a serious mission that requires him to grab an artifact and that after he will quickly leave. The group of guards insist that no one can mess with the Queen's tomb. Ben continues to slowly open it when the guards draw their sword-like weapons, preparing to fight. Ben sighs and lifts his hand with the Force at the guards, Force freezing all of them in place. None of them are able to move. He opens the tomb casket with his other hand and sees his grandmother for the first time. He notices that she has a lot of the same features that his mother had. In her hands on her chest, she is holding the Japer snippet, the little trinket that Anakin gave Padmé when they were very young. Ben knows to not touch it directly, as it would then soon consume him with the dark side. He lifts it with the Force and puts it in his robe pocket. After closing the tomb casket, he holds the guards in place until he is out of sight, where the guards are then able to move normally and look around confused. He heads back towards the ship. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Chewie is piloting the Millennium Falcon where Poe, BB-8, Finn and Rose are in the back. They know Rey is after them and Poe tells Finn to man the ship's control gun. They have just exited Mustafar and are now in space. As Finn gets into the gun control seat, he sees the TIE silencer now behind them. Finn tells the others that she is on them. Rey begins firing at the Falcon in an attempt to ensure that Ben does not survive and isn't able to get to Exegol. With the crew now panicking and dodging the incoming blaster fire, Poe yells for Chewie to go to hyperspace. Chewie growls back at Poe, telling him that she would just track them through it. He does it anyway and the ship blasts into hyperspace and exits a few seconds later. As Chewie predicted, Rey is still right behind them. A blast from Rey hits and rocks the ship. Poe tells Finn to fire back or they will all be dead. Finn, looking down in panic, puts his hands on the gun control and starts to aim at Rey but stops, as he is unable to bring himself to attempt to kill Rey. They are now flying above the Wookiee planet Kashyyyk. Poe, about to yell back again at Finn, is cut off mid-sentence when a strand of multiple blaster fire hits the Falcon, causing many malfunctions in the ship to start plummeting down to the planet. They panic as Chewie growls and tells them that he can hardly control the ship. The ship continues to fall and then plummets into a large lake on the surface, causing a huge impact. The Falcon, now underwater, continues to slowly sink as the ship's interior begins to flood. The water is quickly rising and is waist high. Poe is dazed but yells around for the others. Poe, Finn, Rose and BB-8 all gather together as the water is now up to their necks. They yell for Chewie, who is just in the cockpit piloting the Falcon, but they hear no response. Poe yells, "We have to go now." Finn replies, "We can't just leave Chewie." The inside is now completely full of water. Poe hits the button to open the landing entrance of the ship and they exit the Falcon. In the large body of water, they look up and see that the surface is about 100 feet above. BB-8 shoots a grappling hook at a rock near the surface and the rest grab onto one another. As they quickly shoot up, they look down to see the Falcon sinking into the black and empty darkness of the water. The view shows the dark cockpit of the ship and slowly pans out to show the backside of Chewie, dead. When they reach the surface, they all gasp for breath. They are on a rocky area where above there is a small and climbable cliff to reach the grass landscape. They stop to take time and remember Chewie. Poe tells them that if Chewie were to go, that there is no other planet he would have wanted to pass away on. When they are about at the top of the cliff, they look up to see Rey looking at them with orange eyes and her double-bladed lightsaber ignited. They put their hands up in the air. Rey speaks, "Where is Solo?" Finn quickly says, "Rey, this isn't you. Something has gotten into you and turned you to the dark side." Rey responds, "I am bringing justice to Lord Plagueis." Poe begins to speak, "Rey." Rey uses the Force to bring Poe to her and starts to Force choke him. She then throws her saber at Finn and Rose and has the hot blades inches from their neck as they are now unable to move. She talks in an evil tone. "Where is Solo? I cannot allow Anakin to return." Rey turns Poe around with the Force to look at Finn and Rose, where the lightsaber is inching closer and closer to them. Finn and Rose feel the intense heat of the blades as they are nearly in contact with their necks. Poe has to yell, "He didn't leave Mustafar with us." Rey looks shocked and distressed. She then says, "Then he is trying to go to Exegol and revive Skywalker." BB-8 shoots a jolt of electricity at Rey, who loses her Force grip on Poe and the lightsaber, which falls on the ground. Poe tells them to run. As Poe starts to run away, she lifts him up with the Force and says, "Some things are far more frightening than death." She raises him up and slams him on the ground, knocking him unconscious. Finn, Rose and BB-8 run off and escape as Rey no longer sees a use for them. Rey sees a large Kashyyyk ship in the distance. She brings Poe with her on the ship, takes out the Wayfinder and heads to Exegol. Ben is preparing to take off in his ship while he mentally reminds himself of the Wayfinder's directions to Exegol. He spent hours in that room in Vader's castle reflecting on his past and looking at the Sith artifact, trying his best to draw from the dark side. He lifts off and enters hyperspace. While in hyperspace, he has to navigate in fast and precise movements using his father's piloting skills. He counts down under his breath and exits hyperspace at an exact moment. He is now in an unusual-looking part of space with large alien-like tentacles all around. He navigates through them and enters a clearing when he is now in normal space and sees the Sith planet in front of him. Moments later, Rey and Poe, who is now conscious, appear in their ship to the side of Ben. It is silent as Ben and Rey lock eyes. Ben jolts the ship towards the planet and Rey follows. He uses his flying skills to dodge the incoming blaster fire from Rey as they race to the planet. Ben hears Anakin's voice say, "It's the temple up ahead." Ben looks ahead to see a massive Sith temple as lightning flashes from the sky. As he continues to approach the planet's ground, Rey shoots his ship, causing the ship to malfunction, as it is on path to crash on the planet. Ben ejects from his seat in the ship and is launched out into the open, 30 feet above ground. He ignites his white crossguard saber while falling in mid-air and deflects the incoming blaster fire. His ship crashes to the left of him and he stealthily lands on the cold ground. He starts to run to the temple with Anakin's artifact in his robe. Rey lands the ship and begins to run after Ben. Once she is out of the ship, Poe goes in the pilot's seat and raises the ship in the air to hover just above land and begins firing on Rey. Rey quickly looks back and uses her double-bladed saber to deflect each shot. With Poe stalling Rey, Ben makes progress and enters the temple. Once inside, there is a large open area. Sith chants and whispers are heard while flashes of lightning illuminate the dim area. Ben out loud says, "Grandfather, what do I do now to bring you back?" Ben hears Anakin's voice through the Force. "Ben, if I told you earlier everything that needed to be done, I wasn't sure that you would go through with it, but you must." The Sith power of cheating death requires a Force user to sacrifice themselves while holding the respective artifact here on Exegol. "I'm sorry it has to be this way, but it's the only way we can bring balance to the Force. It's your destiny, and the Force will be with you." Ben looks down, knowing what he has to do. Back outside of the temple, Rey continues to deflect the heavy blaster fire with her saber. She then deflects multiple shots back at the ship, causing it to crash back down from a short distance. Poe is unharmed and quickly exits the ship to follow after Rey on foot. Ben looks over to his left to see Rey enter the large room. Rey takes out her lightsaber hilt, points it at her chest and looks at the ring on her other hand. She then looks over at Ben and pushes the ignition button on one of her blades when Ben quickly raises his hand with the Force in her direction, making the deadly green blade aiming for her chest stutter inches away from her. The ignition of the blade fights with Ben's Force power. Rey smirks at Ben and raises her other hand with a Force push in his direction more powerful than anything Ben had ever experienced and makes him go tumbling farther away from her. He looks up after rolling and the green blade is through her. She falls onto her knees and then onto her back where the ring slides off of her finger and rolls on the ground, causing her orange eyes to return to normal. Rey, on the edge of dying, looks over to Ben with her eyes half open as he approaches her. "Ben? What happened?" Ben's eyes fill with tears. Rey looks back up towards the ceiling as the camera is just on her face. A mysterious voice from the Force says, "Granddaughter, let go." As she hears the voice, she closes her eyes. The camera stays on her face as she then slowly opens her eyes, but she is in a different place. It is blurry and she is lying in the desert alone. She stands up confused and looks around. Then suddenly she is standing high above a dark bridge with two figures standing on it below. One ignites a red lightsaber into the other, causing the other to fall. After, she is in front of the same looking man who killed the other on the bridge. He has his hand held out for her. Then, everything is clear and there are figures surrounded with blue auras. One of the Force ghosts steps forward. "Welcome, granddaughter," Obi-Wan says. Rey becomes emotional with confusion about what happened in the living realm. However, she feels comforted by knowing that she has found a family member. She asks, "What happened to me? I was just in Vader's castle and then was suddenly somewhere else, dying on the ground." Obi-Wan replies, "The dark side can do many unexplainable things to a being. Don't worry, Rey, we know who you truly are inside." She smiles and nods her head. She then says, "Are you really my grandfather? My whole life I have been searching for my family." He replies, "I am your grandfather. My daughter was strong in the Force just like you. But when the dark side of the Force started to become powerful again in the galaxy when you were a child, they had to separate from you to ensure that you would not be found because of her strong presence in the Force." A lady walks up next to Obi-Wan. It is her mother. Obi-Wan continues, "You have fulfilled what you have always wanted, to find your family." The camera cuts back to Rey's body, which disappears into the Force. The ring on the ground shoots out a burst of light. The light swirls and moves around where it then reveals Darth Plagueis, revived and back in the flesh. Ben is distressed on his knees next to where Rey's body disappeared. He is shaking and slowly takes out his lightsaber. He hears Luke's voice in the Force telling him that the Force will be with him. He takes a deep, slow breath and takes out the necklace which he puts on. He begins breathing hard and his eyes flicker orange. Now consumed with the artifact's dark side energy, he holds the lightsaber hilt to his chest and prepares to ignite it. Plagueis, unfamiliar with Ben and who he is attempting to revive with the Sith Lord's unique dark side power, uses the Force to pull back the strongly gripped lightsaber hilt that is pointed at Ben's chest. Ben fights the pull and is trying to ignite the saber into himself, however his strength is no match for the Sith Lord. Plagueis wins the altercation and brings the saber into his possession. Poe enters the room with wide eyes. Plagueis sees him and violently grabs Poe with the Force, bringing him close to the Sith Lord. The Sith Lord speaks, "What is happening here? Who is this boy attempting to revive with my Sith power?" Poe, struggling to speak, is able to get out the words. He is bringing back the Chosen One in the prophecy to destroy the Sith. Anakin Skywalker. Plagueis gives a menacing squint at Poe and then looks over at Ben, who gazes around on the floor with angry Sith eyes. Poe, with his blaster in his right hand, quickly angles it up and rapidly fires close-range blaster shots at Plagueis, who instantly ignites the white crossguard saber to deflect the blasts. While Plagueis is distracted, Ben sees Rey's double-bladed saber on the ground and quickly force pulls the saber in his direction. He catches it and impales himself with one of the lightsaber blades. He has fulfilled his destiny with his sacrifice and disappears into the Force. The necklace artifact drops to the floor, creating a white light. The light swirls and then fades, revealing Anakin Skywalker, back in his prime self. Plagueis aggressively throws Poe aside, crashing into a large Sith statue. He is dazed. Plagueis speaks, "Anakin Skywalker. Who is to say the prophecy to destroy the Sith is true?" Anakin replies, "You underestimate my power." Intense music plays as Anakin uses the Force to lift up the double-bladed lightsaber on the ground next to him. As it's in the air, he uses the Force with his palms facing upwards to break it in half, giving himself the familiar single blue saber. Plagueis ignites the white saber. Lightning flashes and they rush towards each other and start dueling in the fastest speed ever seen. The dim room is lit in a white and blue color by not only the flashes of lightning, but also with the white and blue from the lightsabers. Each of them displays elite skill in their combat form as the fast-moving duel continues. Poe regains full consciousness and hides behind the large statue, in awe of what he is witnessing. The battle appears as blurred flashes of light as a result of the speed of the two powerful Force users. While dueling, Plagueis shoots out Force lightning with his other hand and is dodged and deflected by Anakin. Anakin also shoots out strong pulses of Force push that is dodged by Plagueis, creating deep indents into the hard ground. Their blades clash endless amounts of times as they both push each other back with the Force, creating a gap between them. Plagueis lets out a yell as he throws his saber like a spear at Anakin, who does the same with his saber while on his knees. Plagueis' thrown saber stops in mid-air a foot away from Anakin, and Anakin stops a foot away from Plagueis. They are now using all of their energy in the Force to push their saber towards the other, while preventing the other from impaling them. The camera shows many angles of this moment. It is an even display of Force power, as neither of them can afford even a split second of hesitation if they are to live. Anakin glances at the other piece of the split double-bladed saber on the ground, reminding him of his son. The battle of the Force is equal, but suddenly Plagueis makes Anakin's saber inches away from the Sith Lord go flying in the other direction. The view is on Plagueis' upper half of his body as he has an evil smile on his face, instantly removed as a green flash of light splits his upper body from his lower half. Anakin had used the Force to ignite the green saber from the ground while making it fly towards Plagueis, splitting the Sith Lord into two pieces. The camera then shows Anakin's upper half as he has a soft smile. The camera zooms out to show the white saber in his chest. The Chosen One has fulfilled the prophecy and brought balance back to the Force. Anakin slowly closes his eyes. He dies and his body fades away into the Force. The screen fades to black and writes, 20 years later. Poe is much older now and is sitting in the front of a classroom with BB-8 lecturing a group of kids. Finn and Rose walk in with their child. Poe speaks, "Come in, Rey, don't be shy." As I was saying, for a long time there wasn't balance in the Force, and something needed to be done to solve that. There's an ancient prophecy that states that the Chosen One would come and bring balance to the Force. It turns out, that Chosen One's name was Anakin Skywalker. On Tatooine, he started out as a young child much like yourselves, and like everyone, he went through many difficult times in his life. However, with his strong passion, he was ultimately able to free the galaxy of evil. I was lucky enough to see him in person. He was so powerful in the Force and, as hoped for, fulfilled the prophecy of the Chosen One. The view pans out through the window to show Anakin, Rey, and Ben as Force ghosts looking at Poe teaching from a distance. They smile and the screen cuts to the credits.